We are at Casey's Cottage in Mexico Point State Park in New York. We are on Lake Ontario. We have a beach, we have a fishing hole, we also have a dog beach that they can go out. The park is very small and it's hidden. Basically, if you come down the road, you would not know there was a park there. And we also have Spy Island, that a Revolutionary War hero was buried there. We are presently in Dr. Casey's cottage, and he created this cottage out of a carriage house. Dr. Casey is a professor out of Columbia University, and he taught sociology. And one of the lessons that the students wrote in his book was about 3 mice being in a maze. He taught the students how to take that scenario and put it into everyday life with businesses. And just from that, from all his students that were top 1 in his classes have become CEOs of companies and corporations or presidents of corporations, because they were very successful, and they called it Caseyology in the book that the students wrote. We have a foundation outside that used to be 3 different hotels. It has burnt down. Dr. Casey asked if he could come over and create his summer house out of this place. They agreed, and this is his home. It was a summer home, and then he stayed over at the caretaker's place during the winter. He used to vacation up here. He just seen the property, seen that the hotel burnt down, and decided that he would ask if he could make his cottage out of the carriage house. We're estimating 1956 was the year that he decided to finish at Columbia University and move up here and start his construction on his summer cottage. Casey's Cottage is a 12th century medieval. This is what he wanted as his theme. And when he went to Syracuse University, he went to Severin Bischof, and they started hitting it off as good friends. And he knew that Severin Bischof was an artist out of Germany. So when they were at Syracuse University in the art department, they got together, said, this is what I would like as a theme. The 2 of them worked on it, started doing etchings of Macbeth. We have Sir Lancelot, the knight, and there's a lot here of Robin Hood. The students from Syracuse University came down and decided that they were going to help in it. And when they weren't working and they weren't in studies, they would come out and help Dr. Casey and Severin Bischof do the etchings and sketching and the paintings. So the hours that it took was over 19,000 hours that it took to do the etchings. And what they did was drew the papers and then used it as a charcoal to use as a stencil. Then they carved from that, and then they would paint them. The fireplace is a heatilator. You build a fire, and then the heat rises and it heats up the whole cottage. First floor from the fire, and the second floor has specific holes in it, so it'll heat the upstairs also. It was one of the first created in this cottage in New York State, and then a year later, somebody patented it in New York. In Syracuse, New York. The statues that we have here, the significance of them are, we have Joseph Bryant. He was a tracker for the French. We have Grace the swimmer, because we have a beach out front. We have Dr. Casey. We have a bench out for Dr. Casey to replicate him with his books. We have Bessie, which is the maid from the hotel. And we also have Carmen Basilio, who is the boxer that would come out and box out in what is now the bathrooms. It was a boxing ring that they would train in for the summer. The statues were separate from Dr. Casey. They were done after, just to represent different times of the property in the park.
One of the reports that was informed to me by some of the Casey's Cottage board members was this was a spot for bootlegging years ago, and they called it Smuggler's Cove, and it was a spot, a hot spot where alcoholic beverages would be transported from Canada across on the ships over the water to this location.
One of the top paranormal experiences I've had in here is being upstairs on the second floor, sitting on the third step from the third floor. I was sitting there, felt a little boy tug my shirt. It was just somebody tugged my shirt. And I asked if there was a little boy. I was told it wasn't a boy, it was a man. And then I said, well, I think it's a little boy. And then I asked, is there a little boy here? And 3 weeks later, I turned around, looked down, I listened to my recorder, and I have a Class A EVP with a boy saying cat.
I have heard knocks at the door, at the caretaker cottage door. And then, so I thought, well, when I first heard it, I'm like, it's probably just me dreaming. But then I heard it again, knock, knock, knock. And I was like, oh, who's at the door at this hour? 2 in the morning, who's here? I go out to the door and there's nobody there. I walk out, I'm hello, hello, hello. Nobody's around. Sometimes it's 11, 11:30, but usually like 1:30, 2 in the morning-ish, somewhere 2:30, somewhere around in there. So that will happen quite often, knocks every so often at the door.
I had another experience upstairs. I was in the hallway in between where the stairs are. So I'm standing there and felt really warm. And I decided it's always cooler on the floor. So I sat on the floor, and at the same time, across the window, blacked out, and there was a shadow going across the window in the opposite as where I was looking. Don't know who it was, but there was a shadow that just blocked out the window.
My sister does tarot card readings, oracle card readings, and she wanted to see the inside early on, so I had brought her in here to show her, and then she wanted to sit at the main table that's here in the dining hall, I guess we'll call it. We sat down, and at the time I had my ex-husband and my son were going off to take a fishing trip, and they were getting their things underneath Casey's, getting the fishing equipment, and I had, figured they had left and went on their merry way, and we're getting ready to start, and she said, I feel a little something funny, and I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, I think we better ask if it's okay that, the spirits, if it's okay if we have a little reading in here. And I said, okay. And I said, well, wait a second. I hear some noise. I don't think they're gone getting their fishing equipment yet. And I was like, hey guys, are you done getting your fishing equipment? No answer, no answer. And I repeated it a couple times, and I thought, well, that's weird. Well, I don't know what's going on. So she said, well, I'm going to ask, do you mind, Dr. Casey, Severin Bischof, if we do a reading in here? Boom, lights shut off instantly. Lights shut off, and everything was just pitch black in here. And I said, she goes, okay, nope, we are heading out. They do not want us to be in here right now. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And we are leaving and exiting the door. Lights came back on.
There was two ships. This is a story told by somebody that knows the property very well. And she said there was two ships that were going out from the men and boys that could go out and fight. And they were going out to the ships to fight. I'm not sure if it's the French or the British, not sure which war. And cannons were going off and sunk the two ships. And the women and children were pulling their loved ones, dead loved ones, out of the water.
And when the wives went to look for their husbands and relatives, they ended up having these blue lit lanterns back in the day. Sometimes I'll see a blue, and it's not a boat. And I've looked really close. There's no boat out there. It's just a blue light. I found out that that's what they used years ago, was a blue lit lanterns.
And we don't know if they were buried or if they were just left there and left in the water. That's one of the stories. When I first moved in with the ex-husband, we had bought new keys for the doors when we first moved in, and we were checking them out. Well, there's a little ramp to the kitchen door, and the key had fell between the ramp and the door, and we're trying to get it, and there was no way to get it. And then we looked at each other after 20 minutes and said, this is silly. We're not going to bother to look anymore. And we'll just get another one. We'll make another key. This is silly. My ex-husband chuckled at me at the time and said, well, you better get it soon because you probably will lock yourself out. And I'm like, oh, no, don't worry about it. I'll get it. Well, fast forward to the day everybody went to school and work. I locked myself out. No key. And I thought, oh, no, what am I going to do? So I thought, oh, wait, there's that key over by the ramp. I'll go over there. So I'm getting sticks and picking and flicking, trying to, dirt's flying, trying to get to this key, can't get to it. So I went to the other door, the main door by the living room, and I could not get it to budge. I did that repeatedly, probably about 2 to 3 times back and forth, until I just started to panic, and I stepped back to the fence that's in front of the caretaker cottage, and I stepped back and I just looked up in the air, and I went just like this, and I said, Dr. Casey, could you just help me out? I need to get to work. I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to get tenured. I'm going to be late. Something told me, go back over by the ramp by the kitchen. And I thought, well, why am I going to do that? I was already there like 3 times already. It's not going to be there. And something said, go over there. It will be there. So I walk back over, and right on my green plastic grass looking mat, right in the center of it was the key, right in the middle of it. So, and he comes around and he visits every so often. And when I reach out and say I need help, there's some nice, weird, cool things that occur. Severin Bischof is buried someplace on the property out behind the cottage. His son buried his ashes out back per Severin Bischoff's wishes. Dr. Casey is here to make sure that people do not disrespect his property. We have a little boy here, a cat here, and every once in a while we'll get Severin Bischof as if he's running through the cottage. He's here and then he's gone. I recommend that Jason and JV go upstairs and check out the shadows. There are a lot of shadows you can see blocking out of the windows. There are also in the moat as the porch. There are also shadows that walk around here at Casey's cottage.